Hi, I'm David Vest, and you're listening to Cigar&Whiskey with Yannick Theriault on Beau FM.
Folks, it's Nick from TDC Moncton and Cigar&Whiskey. I have the privilege of actually meeting one of Canada's imports. He is well known and well renowned. He has a very long-lived career. He's been doing it since the age of 14, professionally since the age of 15. But he's going to tell us a little bit more about himself, better than what I can actually let you in on. So I'm going to turn the camera over to the young gentleman in front of me. This, folks, is David Vest, and he is known for his piano stylings, boogie woogie.
Yes, I'm Canada's oldest living promising young pianist.
Now, you were born in Huntsville, Alabama?
Huntsville, Alabama, yeah.
And eventually you lived in Birmingham, and Spain and France?
France a bit, Romania for a year,
Oh, okay.
Texas for 20 years.
That's true. I just remembered you were the only Canadian that had an album recorded in Romania.
Yeah, at least the first one I recorded in Bucharest for Electric Board.
You then moved on and met love from a Canadian woman.
Yes.
And decided to settle in BC, specifically in Victoria.
Victoria, BC, on Vancouver Island, yes.
The last one that you decided to release is just simply titled David Vest.
Yeah, we used up all the good ideas and creativity in the songs, and when it came time to name the record, no one could think of anything. So.
Well, I do know that the record itself has received wide acclaim. And I do know that you visited, it's not just blues for this one, but you do have snippets of your persona in regards to rockabilly, rock and roll, maybe one bluesy tune. I know that everyone's pointing to the Renovator Man, I think? Renoviction, thank you. And that's for all the people that are evicting people living in apartments or houses because they want to renovate and rent it at higher prices.
Well, I just wanted to make it clear that the blues is on the side of the people getting evicted, not on the developers and landowners and promoters. I mean, we came from the little guys, and that's who we speak for and to. My sympathies are with people getting thrown out of their homes.
That was 1953?
57, I would have been 13, almost 14.
Okay.
That's the first time they paid me to play.
And then after that, you started playing with prominent greats. One in particular that caught my attention was Big Joe Turner.
Yes.
Fabulous man.
He was a wonderful man and a wonderful person to be on stage with. I mean, you can imagine what it felt like to be about 20 years old, sitting at the piano, and you look up, and there at the microphone is Big Joe Turner.
Yeah.
Singing Honey Hush, Patty Brown Blues.
A whole bunch of others that he's left his mark on.
And his, he had some great piano players too, and like Pete Johnson from Kansas City. And then when he got to New York, he recorded a lot with Piano Man Walls, who was my hero as a child growing up. I mean, listening to his records, I wanted to play that stuff. And of course, Van Walls is another American blues piano player who moved to Canada and stayed. He immigrated to Montreal.
Okay.
Yeah.
From that point on, you decided to continue with other participation in regards to playing either as an added instrumentalist for certain bands.
Yeah, those were the days when even more rigidly than today, they wanted to put you in categories. I mean, a jazz band couldn't have a steel guitar player because that made you country. And a country band couldn't have a drummer because that made you rock and roll.
Okay.
And you weren't supposed to be seen with so-and-so, and you weren't supposed to cross the street. And I just never believed in any of that stuff. I mean, I recorded with Tammy Wynette because she was my friend.
Yeah.
I didn't think that, this makes her a rockabilly or a blues singer. or that it makes me a country and western guy.
Now, I understand that you also wrote songs for Tammy Wynette.
Yeah, she asked me to.
Oh, okay. And did you continue a partnership with her in regards to just writing songs
Well,
once in
we
a while?
played a lot of shows together,
Okay.
and we recorded together.
So you were an actual bandmate of Tammy Wynette's?
Well,
when
she was
young?
in my band. She was the singer in my band for a while.
Okay.
And then we were both together in another group that was on a regular TV show in Birmingham.
Well,
this was before she got famous.
Okay, but what was the name of the show?
It was the Country Boy Eddie Show. It was called, and I was the fly in the ointment. They'd have the country songs, then they'd have me play some boogie woogie.
Fly in the ointment.
Yeah.
Well, I don't believe in flies and ointments anymore. Not with the cross platforms that we see nowadays in regards to all the music stylings. Because I've had pop singers that were viewed as pop, but their songs came over more on the roots side, and sometimes blues or even jazz.
It's just music. I mean,
It is.
somebody asked me recently in an interview, "What's the greatest country music album I ever heard?" And I said, "It's by Ray Charles. Modern sounds in country and western music." And the best single was Bobby Blue Bland singing "Today I Started Loving You Again." I mean, blues musicians loved country music, but country music didn't love them. And that's why I didn't go in that direction, because I don't like going where my friends aren't welcome.
Oh, there's that. Now, speaking of where your friends aren't welcome, you did tread various paths because you started young and you decided to continue in your career. I do know you sing, and up until the Tammy Wynette portion of your history, I wasn't aware that you actually wrote original music for other people. But I do know you write your own, so I shouldn't be surprised. You took up the piano because of a legend that you really recognize yourself in. Is there any other musical instruments that you tend to dabble
I play a
with?
little guitar and a mandolin,
Okay.
and of course other keyboard instruments.
Okay.
I like to play something I can't really play around the house. That's why I play my mandolin. I can be an amateur and just have fun with music.
But I'm glad your passion actually allowed you to go from day one in music and then move on. From the 1950s to now, what's the biggest, from your vantage point, the biggest change or challenge that musicians in blues or any musical style are currently facing?
Well, it's the same thing that's happened to the whole world. And W.C. Handy, who was from Alabama too, predicted it. He said in one of his songs, "We're coming to the age of loveless love, milkless milk, silkless silk. And everything will be artificial. It won't be real milk. It won't be real silk. And you can't get real bread. Or they call it artisan bread now, if it's actual bread." And music, if you went into a record store today, I mean, 95% of the product for sale there is artificial. It's put together by some producer. The musicians weren't even present when the record was made. You have a singer singing with people she's never even met, and the whole idea of musicians playing together and having a conversation and give and take and response has, I think they should put a label on recordings. I could have it on mine. This was made by real musicians playing together at the same time in the same place on actual instruments.
Well, that makes sense because recently, in the last 5 years, I came across an album that was sent to me for radio promotional airplay, and it was Ray Charles and Duke Ellington. Same time frame in regards to what was happening. They could never play together, and they always wanted to play a concert together. So what they did is that they took original recordings from the same venue, and they decided to put both of them together. and they added in additional horns, additional backup singers from connections to either the Ellington Orchestra or Ray Charles past, and they made the album. It was the first time that I actually saw an actual album with two deceased members of the musical society that were suddenly revived. I mean, we saw it with Nat King Cole singing with his daughter for a video where they decided to superimpose the music.
They didn't get to ask Nat if he wanted to do that project or not, and the same with Ray. What do you think about doing this? I mean, they may have been for it, they may have been against it.
Well,
it's an interesting thing, and I'm not saying some good music isn't made in this new way. I buy some of it too, but my kind of music it's all about being real. Even on my own recordings, I would never play the music first and come in and sing the vocal later, because then I feel like I'm making a karaoke record. I'm singing to a pre-recorded track.
So you're one of the few that actually likes to sit down and do the recording straight from start to finish.
Yeah, and I really shouldn't present it as like some great matter of principle it's just the only way I know how to do it. It's nice that you can get a musician who's living on the other side of the planet, go into a studio and record a track, and you can include that on your album that you made in Vancouver Island.
Yeah.
There's some advantages to it, and people of integrity can make good music in any format.
Now, with everything that you've seen and done, the album, which normally when I see just the name of the artist, nothing else is usually their beginning, you decided to do your sixth one with David Vest because, as you mentioned,
I'm just getting started.
You're just getting started.
Yeah, I didn't want to jump out of the gate too soon.
No, but you also actually were a co-director of the Paul Bay Band for a while.
Paul DeLay, the great harmonica player.
And that lasted for, what?
About 5 years.
5 years, and then you decided to go on your own for your single recording?
Well, I had moved to Canada in the process, and it was so difficult going back and forth across the border, getting off the island to go play the shows with Paul.
Okay.
And Paul's bookings were changing too. He was getting, smaller venues, and he really needed to reduce the size of the band, and I could see that, and I needed to quit traveling so much.
Okay.
So shortly before he passed away, I stopped playing with him. We were going to play again together, but we never got the chance. Paul is a great songwriter, a great harmonicist, and a great fellow. He wrote a wonderful song called, a soul blues song called "Why Can't You Love Me? If you can love someone that's no good, why can't you love me?" Great writing.
Now you've played with also David Gogo on one of his albums. I'm trying to remember.
2 of them, actually. I did his Christmas album, and then I did one called "Come On Down" with him. And David's a friend. He lives up near Nanaimo.
Yeah.
His family sells Christmas trees. They have a Christmas tree farm.
Apart from the harvest date that you're playing, which is tonight and tomorrow, which is Saturday night with the Ross Nielsen Band and 2 other names which are escaping my mind, and tomorrow as a free show presented by the CBC. Is there any other locations that you've been at since the beginning of the year?
Well, I've done a lot of festivals this year. I went down to Portland and played the Portland Waterfront Blues Festival.
Nice.
And then I did the Edmonton Blues Festival.
Even nice.
And the Nanaimo Summertime Blues Festival. And I'll be going to Saskatchewan in November for a couple of shows with my friend Kenny Blues Boss Wayne.
Oh.
2 pianos.
Yeah, Kenny's a cool cat.
If only he knew how to dress.
I think that's a jab to Kenny. Because I do know that you tend to dress with almost in a suit when you do your shows. Because if anything I've seen in the past, you dress well. You dress to be Almost like Alain Toussaint when he dresses when he's on stage.
It's
with
a southern thing, I think, and it's, it depends on the venue and the weather. And I've certainly seen Alain Toussaint in a Hawaiian shirt and a pair of slacks and some sandals, when
Yeah.
it's 100 degrees in New Orleans and the humidity's very high.
Yeah.
I don't always wear a suit, but I like to dress up.
Well, I mean, tickling the ivories is one thing, but being presentable while tickling the ivories is even doubly so. Although some people, like you've mentioned, have pulled fantastic shows regardless of what they wear.
Yeah.
It's more the hands that do the dressing up when
Right.
it comes to the music.
People have different ways of doing this, and certainly wouldn't criticize the other ways, but I like to show a little respect for the music.
Hmm.
I wouldn't come to my job at the bank, dressed sloppily and set a beer can on the counter while I say, "Come up and give me your money,"
So after the Harvest Festival, where are you heading, apart from the one in Saskatchewan?
Well, I'm going back home to Victoria. Actually, I just came across the country to play this one festival. I was hoping to spend more time on the east, but it didn't work out this time.
Oh, well, we hope that the next times that you do manage to do this again.
I want to, but I told my agent, who lives in Vancouver, that I want to take my music to every corner of Canada. I want to just, for one thing, get to see the country I'm living in, that I'm a part of now.
Hmm.
And so you got to be careful what you ask for, because 2 weeks later he calls, says, "Wonderful, I got you a tour booked in this January, Northern Ontario." Northern Ontario in January. He said, "Yeah, that's not all bad news. You also have Buffalo, New York." And so then he sends me to northern Alberta, northern Saskatchewan, and late January, early February, and to Winnipeg in January. So I've seen Canada at different times of the year.
Wow, January is not. It's what I call the opening season for snow.
My friend Amos Garrett has a nice rule about touring as a musician, and he expresses it very simply: if it's snowing, Amos ain't going. But
I don't blame him.
I haven't yet
Hit
applied
that wall.
rule. I'll go if they ask me.
Okay. Now because you've played with many people in your lifetime. You fronted for Roy Orbison when he was alive.
Yeah,
And-
1960, New Year's Day, 1962. That's quite a while
And
back.
you've played with other bands that are most notable. You've been recognized at the Maple Blues for your contributions in regards to the music. You were nominated for Best Album of the Year, but unfortunately didn't win it.
Well, I got a lot of piano player awards, and I'm very touched by that, because I didn't come to Canada because you needed piano players. The greatest piano players in the world were from Canada. Oscar Peterson was here when I moved up.
Yeah,
And,
Oliver Jones.
Yeah, and Oliver Jones, Lance Anderson, Kenny Blues Boss Wayne,
Yeah.
Michael Casehammer, who lives in my city, all across the country.
Have you ever played with Michael Casehammer?
And we haven't played together, but we're friends. We sometimes hang out in the airport lounge, and
And chat and then discuss.
there was one year when we were both nominated for the Maple Blues Award for Piano Player of the Year, so we're kind of looking at each other warily, which one of us is going to get it. And then Kenny Blues Boss Wayne sneaked in between us and got it. So we laughed about it the next day. So I said, "At least you didn't get it."
There's at least that. Now I do know that right now it's mostly you touring with a small duo or trio.
Well, right now it's me solo. I'll be
You
playing
solo?
solo here.
Okay.
I have my own band out in the West Coast, and sometimes we take them around, and sometimes I'm backed by musicians, like when I go in the Toronto area, the guys from Down Child play with me.
Oh, nice. Is there any particular musician you'd like to get together with and play a duet album or some such?
Yeah. I'd like to do a bunch of them. I'd like to do a duet album with Tim Williams, a great guitarist from Alberta. I don't think he's ever been to this festival. He'd be great at it. And I'd like to do one with Cecile Ducanguay, who's one of the greatest guitarists alive.
For everything that we have right now, we just wish you the best of an event here at the Harvest Jazz and Blues. We're glad that you're gracing us with your presence, and I just hope that you have the time of your life, at the very least, in regards to aspect of what you have here.
To it. I've been longing to get to Fredericton, to New Brunswick, ever since I got to Canada, and I'm finally here, and I'm so happy about it.
Thank you so much, David, for accepting my request and giving me this time.
So happy to do it. Thanks for asking.
We were just chatting a few moments ago in regards to your influence, because we were playing on Cajun music and Acadian music that influenced it, and all the French connections that we have from Canada down in the States. You mentioned that a lot of the influences that you got were from swamp pop coming across from Louisiana.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that in Cajun dances, you saw everyone coming together. They weren't separated. It was white, blacks, gays, straight,
Absolutely.
all playing together. And you mentioned something that I wasn't even aware of. The Fats Domino had a contract that he would not play if it was a segregated audience.
Yes, he always says music brings people together. It doesn't separate them.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at all the artists who are considered, progressive, reasonably enlightened now in the 50s, he was the only one who just wouldn't. I won't play for a segregated audience. Period.
Wow.
He was a man of principle. He lived this his entire life.